You're watching WCSD Cable Television from Calloway County High School.
Over the past 10 years, photography has evolved in many different ways with the digital age. The process of taking a photo, developing it, and editing it can now be done on your phone. Hello and welcome to Calloway Connections. I'm Azim Panahanda, and this is my guest, local photographer Alex Nance. Alex, thank you for joining me today.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
So, to start out, what's the name of your business?
My business name is Dolce Birth Photography and Doula Services.
And how did you come up with the name? Is there anything specific?
Well, I really enjoy the word dolce. It means sweet. And when I think of a lot of what I do, I just think of it as capturing a lot of sweet moments. And so I thought it was very appropriate for me to incorporate that.
Mm-hmm. So what is the main subject of your photography? Do you specialize in anything, or do you do most of any type?
I mostly focus on birth and newborn photography, but I also do a lot of different things like family photography, conceptual photography, and a lot of how I started is doing a lot of more conceptual work and based upon my feelings and just creating art.
Okay. And with starting out, what got you interested overall in becoming a photographer?
When I was in middle school, I got a camera and I just started taking pictures of literally anything and everything that I could possibly take pictures of. And one day I was at a birthday party and I found this really gorgeous Gerber daisy and I took a really good picture of it. And a lot of people were like, wow, that looks like a Windows desktop picture that would be kind of like that picture of the Green Hill whenever you have Windows. A lot of people were like, it looks like it would be a background. And so I was like, that's really cool. And I wanted to explore that a little bit more and see how much better I could get with that.
Mm-hmm. So when you do you work in or out of a studio? What's that situation?
Typically I work out of a studio. I mean, I can make a makeshift studio in my home or in someone else's home if I need to. I have lighting equipment, but for the most part I typically just work with natural lighting and working outdoors.
Mm-hmm. And with your equipment, does it have to be really portable since you don't have to have a studio with you necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, I have small stands and it's not super grandiose, huge stuff. It has to be able to, I have a bag that's probably this big that I carry pretty much everything in. So it's kind of portable, yeah.
Yeah. And since you said you have to go, since you don't work with the studio, do you have to go to the client most of the time?
It just depends on what they have and what they need. I have worked in my own bedroom before taking pictures of a newborn. I have gone to people's houses with my lighting equipment. It just depends on what they are wanting or needing or whatever works best.
Okay. And when you do go to a shoot, do you have multiple people working with you, or is it just mainly you? What's the situation with that?
Typically it's just me. Occasionally I'll have one of my sisters or my boyfriend accompany me just to help with if I have to bring my lighting equipment or something like that, have them there to help me carry it in and help set it up.
Okay, so most of the time you have someone that's helping you out if you need them.
If I need them, yeah.
And with you being a doula as well, how does that work? How did you get into that?
After I had my daughter, I just became really interested in the birthing community and learning more about how all that works. And I stumbled upon this profession that was just really interesting. It's not quite like a midwife because there's no medical training. And technically you don't even really have to be trained at all to become a doula. You're pretty much just a support person. You're there for them physically, emotionally, and you know a lot of information about how, the physiology of birth and stuff like that. I just found that really interesting and I wanted to make birth better for women.
Yeah, so when you take photos for someone in that situation, what's it like? Is it something that someone might expect? Is there any kind of pre-notion about what it's like?
I get a lot of weird looks, especially from nurses. They're just what is she doing here? Why would anybody want this kind of thing? And I usually get looked at like I have 5 eyes. But I really, I just keep calm. And typically if I'm doulaing and being a photographer, doulaing always will come first. But I don't know, I just think it's really enjoyable. And love being able to capture those moments for my clients, and it just depends on what the client wants also, not necessarily what my vision might be.
And now I see that we have a few pictures that were on screen from your Facebook page. So if anybody's interested in contacting you, how would they do that?
My Facebook page is Dolce Birth Photography and Doula Services. The URL, I think, is just facebook.com/dolcebirth. If you want to check that out and give it a look, that'd be cool.
All right. And you do regular photography through that account as well, correct?
No, I typically just keep my doula and my birth photography like separate from all my other work. So I do have 2 separate Facebook pages for like if I do like weddings or family photography or something like that. I do keep them separate.
Okay. Well, okay, after a short break, we're going to continue with the questions, and Alex will continue, and she'll stay. But we're going to be asking her how her style's changed and any influences that she's had.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
Welcome back to Calloway Connections. I'm Azim Panahande and my guest, Alex Nance. So Alex, with you being a photographer, do you have any influences that really inspired you?
When I first started out, I kind of would just stumble upon things and find just different artists. And in the beginning, I didn't really look at names. I just kind of looked at what the work was. But in recent years, I found photographers like Gracie Hagan, who is a modern day photographer that I've actually modeled for in Chicago. Her work is a huge influence of mine. Just the raw vulnerableness of her work really attracted me. And I like to capture the raw emotion of things, and so her work really, really speaks to me in a lot of ways. Sorry,
you're good. With the photographer that you just mentioned, is she really well known? Like, do you look to people that are well-known photographers, or do you look to people that might be smaller, like lesser-known people?
She has had like a book published with her work, and I think she became a little internet famous for a little bit, but I don't think she's really like well known. And a lot of the times I do look at more like maybe different Facebook pages that I may stumble upon and find not really like a lot of huge photographers, but I do like a lot of people don't know that Pablo Picasso did a little bit of photography work, and I really like his photography work as well as his paintings. But typically I just look at more smaller photographers.
And throughout the years that you've done photography, how has your style changed?
In the beginning, I just kind of took pictures of everything. I didn't really think much about like composition or subject matter. I just kind of took pictures. But throughout the years, I've kind of developed more of a style, I guess you could say, of like, you know, I really enjoy photographing, like I said, the raw and vulnerable emotion of things instead of just taking pictures of whatever. And I've learned more of like the technical aspects of it as far as composure and exposure and shooting in manual mode as opposed to just shooting in auto mode, you know. And a lot of people just pick up a camera and just keep it on auto, but I learned more of how to customize how I shoot and what exactly I want to see through my lens.
So for anybody that's starting out, like what are some tips that you would give them?
Play around with manual mode. Don't just shoot in auto. And there are so many great resources online for like learning how to use manual mode. Tons of things on YouTube, like tutorials. There are tons of free photography classes online. I think Harvard even offers a free one. So there's tons of great resources that you can definitely look into.
And final question, in your opinion, what makes a good photo? Like, to you, what is the perfect photo?
That's a tough question because, I mean, to so many people it could mean so many different things. And so in my work, I portray how I'm feeling as far as like my conceptual work. With my commercial work, it's a little bit different. I'll talk to my clients and see what they're wanting and kind of combine that with what I'm wanting to see as well. But with my conceptual work, it's just kind of like how I try to set things up how I want to see them. And so I'll think about, composure. How do I want to compose this image? I don't want to, chop off the top of their heads, or like I want to try and get their full body in the figure or in the screen. Or I want to make sure that my highlights are nice and highlighted, and my shadows aren't too dark or too grainy. I don't want too much noise in my picture, that kind of thing. And I just want to make sure that it looks crisp, clean, my image is sharp, and my subject is really clear. And I have a nice blurry background.
Okay. Well, that's all the time that we have today. Again, thank you for coming, Alex. It was a pleasure to interview you. And thank you for watching Calloway Connections. I'm Azim Panahanda, signing off.